everyone. Welcome to Friday Night Ops, episode 71. I'm Margaret Luperza Crone, your host for the evening, and with me...
I am Tony RadarX Jones, your community manager for PlanetSide 2.
Yeah. And if you don't know what Friday Night Ops is, well, this is a web show all about PlanetSide 2. Who would have thought? And so today we're going to be going over quite a few things. I might be a little loud here, so I'm going to turn myself down. We are going to go over some news and announcements, things that have been happening in the community that RadarX is going to run us through. And then we're going to do a discussion panel, and this is going to be covering mostly implants, but we're also going to talk a little bit about PS4 as well as the new vehicle changes that are coming around with Liberators and vehicles and whatnots. And that's going to be with Scourge. You guys might know that fellow, kidRiot, and also it's MuRdA. And these are, core people that we've had in our community for quite some time. And they put together this panel, and they like to talk about all these different things. They have a bunch of things that they want to cover, but we may do a Q&A at the end as well. I know some of you guys may have been here also for the Dire outfit spotlight, but I'm having some issues talking with them and getting on their TeamSpeak. So we're probably going to push those guys out into the MLG stream, which we'll talk about a little bit in a moment here.
All right.
So let's start it off. What has been going on, Tony?
So you would think with E3 it wouldn't be a busy week, but actually we got quite a bit going on.
You would think with E3 that it would be a busy week.
Well, I mean, E3, there's typically like a couple of big announcements, and that's like, it's like, oh, PlayStation 4, and then that's it, because everybody's focused on that. But actually, we got quite a bit going on. We did announce PlayStation 4 with a brand new trailer. If you haven't seen it, head to our YouTube channel. Yes,
and we had some awesome players. I want to give a shout out to those guys who have helped us make that. We had Dust Onfall. Who else do we have in there? Validus Gamers, right. And I just want to check one. I don't want to leave somebody out that we had. Who was our final? OutfitX.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had forwarded along, and I think we were supposed to have No Nonsense Gamers helping out, but I know there was some miscommunication and whatnot. So hopefully we can have those guys in a future one, and keep in touch with us because we're always looking for new outfits who can help us make all these different videos, and we try to give you guys shout outs.
Because we don't have hundreds of players here at the studio to make these videos, so yeah, we need players sometimes. So yeah, the new trailer came out. We had PlayStation 4 at E3, so you guys should look for some interviews and some video with that.
It's the first time we've shown PS4.
We have.
Other than that little mishap with Clegg. If you follow him on Twitter.
I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, it was good. It was a good show from what I hear. Other things we have going on, for those of you who are super interested in the tank and Liberator changes, the tank changes should go to test next week.
Okay.
We just posted test notes, so if you want to go read those, we're still taking people's feedback on that. Thank you to all of you who have contributed to the almost 50-page thread now.
Having fun moderating that, I'm sure.
It actually has not been that bad. There's been a ton of constructive feedback.
That's what I like to hear.
It's not saying we haven't moderated anyone, because we have, but in general, I mean, the feedback's been really good, and the team's been following it.
By moderation, it's like people ranting and crazy and screaming. If you're just like, hey, I don't like this because of X and Y, why don't you try Z and D? We're like, legit. So
for the most part, most people haven't done that. They've been very specific about what they don't like and why. So
perfect.
Good deal on that.
I like that.
Waterson, Matherson, server merge is upcoming.
That was something that I had here, and that's going to be. We're also going to be doing a little battle. We're
going to be doing a server smash. Yeah.
So you guys are going to be able to check that at 5 p.m. PDT on the 20th, and that will be at www.twitch.tv/INIcast. And we will be promoting them on this channel as well. We're going to do a little segment with them on this channel. And then we're also going to send you guys to theirs. And then on Saturday, we'll replay the broadcast if you weren't able to go check it out on their channel live. So you'll have some people to chat with while it's going on. So it'll be a lot of fun. Good stuff.
Yeah.
And the biggest part about that, so because we're doing a server merge between Matherson and Waterson, which name? What name do we take? Which one is it going to be?
We're going to let the players decide.
We're going to let the players decide by doing this giant battle. So whoever is the victor of this server smash, they are going to claim the name for the server that is merged into.
It's the ultimate battle.
The ultimate battle for the server name.
For the server name. It's all about your heritage.
Then you can say, like, I was on that server. Those guys were repping us. So hopefully they do you a solid and win. Cheer them on. I can't wait to see the chat for that on the INI.
It's going to be absolutely insane.
It's going to be fantastic. I'll try to play that on the big screen at MLG too.
I think that'll be awesome. Yeah, we should. So yeah, that's pretty much everything happening from a community perspective. Like I said, a lot went on this week. Next week we'll have another update. Should be smashing some bugs. And,
oh yeah, people are asking what happens when it's a draw.
what happens when a draw? Then there's got to be sudden death. Something's gonna have to happen.
Knife
Somebody's
fight.
got to win.
The leaders each have to knife. No, I don't know what they're.
Yeah.
I think they have a draw. They do have rules for that. So if you go check out their rules, they do have that.
Because if there is a tie, we're gonna name a server. You're not gonna like that.
I think they have a tie ruling. At least they did whenever I've casted Server Smash in the past.
So it should be good.
Yeah. And yeah, so I guess that's E3, mostly
That's
just
E3,
PS4 stuff that we've been talking about. We do have some more things down the road that are coming down for PlanetSide too. I know people are really excited about Hassan.
Hassan coming next month. That's right. And yeah, some other stuff, but yeah.
I think Hassan's the biggest thing.
Hassan is the biggest thing from what I hear. Also the outfit stuff. So
yeah, the new outfit stuff. I think that we've talked about it a little bit here because a lot of people ask me questions, and I'm like, I know they're working on some outfit recruitment stuff for you guys, and
yeah, they are.
And constantly trying to figure out better UI as far as like leading platoons and groups. And I know they've talked about alliances between different outfits and platoons and stuff. So we're working on it. Keep giving us your feedback. We only have so many resources, so we try to dedicate them the best that we possibly can. I guess the only last thing is that next week, Tony and I are going to be going over to MLG Anaheim. I believe this is going to be kind of one of our last MLGs that we're going to be hanging out at, but it should be really fun. I love MLG. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with them.
It's fun to go to.
Cool people. I'm a huge StarCraft fan, and I like watching the Call of Duty matches, and I think they've had a couple Dota 2, which has been really cool. So I always have fun at them. A lot of my homies are over there. And we are going to be doing a live stream every day. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. PDT. We're nuts, I know. And then we'll try to promote some of you guys who cast afterwards. And send our viewers over your way if you are going live. So hit me up on Twitter at Perfect Storm if you are going to be streaming afterwards, after that 5 p.m. And I'll try to help promote your guys' streams. Beyond that, oh, man. We have halftime shows too.
We have halftime shows on Friday and Saturday. Higby and you will be doing halftime shows. So yeah. And
we'll have Tremel Isaac that's going to be there.
Tremel will be there as well.
He'll be there the whole time.
And for those of you who like early morning streams, we're not going to have a lot of time to promote it, but next Monday at 8 a.m., Tremel is going to do a special live stream for Player Studio. There's
going to be some cool stuff that you might want to know about, so you might want to tune in.
If you live in Europe, I mean, we won't say anything else, but
we do love you. We're trying our hardest. I get a lot of comments about that, even on the EQ2 side. They're like, "Why do you hate us?" I'm like, "Do you really think we do? No, we do not hate you. No." So we're working our best to kind of get all that stuff conglomerated, so you guys can all be part of everything, and we can unite together and make an awesome Player Studio item together. Maybe not together, but
Yeah, I don't think you can do it together.
No. That'd be cool if you could do a group project together.
Yeah.
Maybe we should send that to Tremel. The next idea. Yeah,
that's more landmarky.
That is more landmarky. What happens in Landmark when you do that?
I don't know.
Yeah. Right now it's the one person who actually turns it in and gets the credit for it.
What happens is someone in finance probably goes...
That is probably what happens. Let's just not talk about that. But yeah, so that's mainly what's happening and coming up this week. So tune into all those things. We will have those on our social channels. So if you tune into any of the PlanetSide 2 channels, we'll make sure that you guys know about that, and right here, of course. So anything else, Tony?
I think that's enough.
That's enough?
That is quite a bit for the next coming week, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so let people know where they can find you at. And where they can send you feedback.
They can find me and send feedback to at RadarX, at PlanetSide 2, on the forums. We read Reddit, we read Facebook. We're everywhere.
All right.
We're stalking your feedback.
Yes, and we're going to be switching over and doing our discussion panel for the evening today. That's going to be with Scourge, It's MuRdA, and kidRiot, and we're going to be moving over there. So give us one moment while we transition, and thank you once again, Tony, for joining us and telling us about all the cool things that are happening.
No, thank you.
Oh, yeah, so fancy. All right. See you guys in one moment. All right, everyone, I am back. We're going to be doing our discussion panel, and this is episode 71. We've made it so far. And with me this evening, I have some really awesome people in the community. I have kidRiot, Scourge, it's MuRdA. Say hello, fellows.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going, guys?
From the internets. So let's start this bad boy off. Going over here, we kind of wanted to talk about a couple things. I want to let you each introduce yourselves, tell people what you do in the community, because I think that's really an important part of this. I know we're going to talk a little bit about vehicle stuff, and I know some of these guys are not gung-ho vehicle peeps, but we'll definitely be doing a Liberator vehicle panel next week. Or maybe the week after that, since we have MLG. But we'll figure it out, and I will definitely keep you guys up to date. I try my best to, so if you just follow the forums in the PlanetSide 2 Friday Night Ops section, I do my best. Gabe, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first? Or I should say Kid.
Yeah, it's all right.
I'm so used to calling you guys by your real names.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's a toss of the coin, I guess. No, my name's kidRiot. I've been involved in the past a lot more in the community. Now I just kind of sit around, keep up on YouTube videos and stuff like that, and try and keep up with what's going on with the game. So I still really enjoy it, even though I don't play it as much as I used to.
Your mic is like going in and out for some reason. Or
is it?
It's like going one ear and then the next. I don't know what's happening.
Is that better? Test.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anyway, I've been around. That's all I gotta say.
All right. Scourge, what about you?
I'm Scourge of the server from Future Crew on the Connery server. I'm an outfit leader. I stream every night on Twitch. I like to think that I'm a player that does a little bit of everything. I fly USFs, I fly Liberators, I play a lot of heavy assault.
Mm-hmm. He does all the things. If you watch his stream, you're just like, I hate you. But then you can't kill him, and then you cry. MuRdA, what about you?
All right, so it's MuRdA. I've been a part of the PlanetSide community since 2003 with the PlanetSide 1 beta. And I also play with Future Crew like Scourge. I play on Matherson as well, Matherson and Connery. Primarily infantry, probably about 95% of what I do is infantry related. And I stream as often as my work allows me to at itsmurda.com.
And you also collect polar bears and hats.
That is correct.
All right, well, let's get this show on the road. First of all, we've been talking about PlanetSide 2 on PS4 forever. I know people have been really excited about it. It's been a slower process just because we do have to transition from PC to PS4 and kind of figure out where our resources need to go. And we wanted to talk about this a little bit, so I'm just going to put in these questions really quick here. The first thing that kidRiot has on here is there has been some recent discussion regarding the performance of PlanetSide 2 on PlayStation 4, considering that all PS4s will be running at the exact same setting. It may be possible that the graphics settings on the console will be higher than some PCs. What are the options on this potential situation? And I guess this, I don't know if Kid was hoping that I would address this specifically, but I guess you guys can all leave your opinions on what you think about the graphics settings. I think this is going to be a great moment for people who don't have great PCs to be able to play PlanetSide 2 on higher graphics and enjoy the beauty of it, because it is quite a wonderful game, but not everyone can handle it. I know we've been consistently trying to add, more performance increases, but it's a slower process. Since you're already up there, MuRdA, why don't you have your take on it?
Okay, I guess I'll play the Scourge card on this question because, as you guys
Scourge
probably
card.
know, if you're familiar with, yes, it's usually involves negativity. But anyway, if you guys are familiar with the stream or whatever, you probably know that I'm really a fan of my low to medium graphic settings in the first place. So I don't know that I'm necessarily taking the angle on this question that kidRiot was probably implying. As far as higher graphic settings on consoles.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I always attribute it to, growing up playing PC games in the 90s where graphics were garbage and it never really bothered me. So I'd always much rather have the ability to, tune everything to my heart's content. And,
well, if you go back to old
performance and stuff like that, yeah.
If you go back to old school FPS like Doom style,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it wasn't the best of graphics,
yeah.
but
And even
definitely
PlanetSide
gameplay.
on low looks a million times better than that. So it never really bothered me. It's actually interesting. kidRiot linked the PTS patch notes like 5 minutes ago, and there was an option in there to turn down bloom, I guess. So I haven't gotten to obviously mess with that at all, but that's interesting.
Yet. It's on
Okay, so
I
it's
just
coming
checked
out.
before we went on. Yeah. It's on
Okay, cool. But yeah, that's something I'm interested in checking out for sure.
All right. And I guess, Kid, why don't you kind of go over what you were thinking?
The thing
This
that I was
was gonna
thinking
go.
is,
Yeah.
is that usually in FPS consoles games like Call of Duty, like they have a benchmark, right? I think on
Yeah.
the Xbox One or Xbox it was like 720p, 60 FPS. I think Battlefield got close, but PlanetSide 2 is a whole different beast. And even though I remember Higby in one of his interviews at E3 was saying we have the advantage of we have this one set of hardware that we can directly optimize for.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so
Right.
amazing for us as game developers.
Right, and then so I went to Reddit, like most of us do, and I was thinking, are they going to be happy because not only is this game going to look good on a standardized platform, but the people that play it are going to actually enjoy it in ways maybe some of us can't.
Yeah.
But instead, people were pretty negative. They're like, well, what? That's not fair. I have a PC, but I think the part that a lot of people are missing is that SOA is a business, and you really want to give the best, put your best foot forward. And to me, it's like I'm really happy. I mean, if people can get really awesome settings on the PS4,
who is upset about Who is upset
Reddit.
that they can't play on their PS4 and get
that's
good
what I was
graphics?
saying. And unfortunately or fortunately, Reddit's like the most outspoken community, and I'm usually in a lot of topics.
Oh, on any topic, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the forums of the internet is what I like to call Reddit.
Yeah, and so my thing is like, if somebody else can have something like that's really awesome and amazing, and maybe you can have it as good, I mean, it's still awesome, you know what I mean? And that's how I see it. I think there's nothing negative about it in any way. I mean, if you want to get a PS4 ultimately, you can save up, or if you want to put those money into your PC parts.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, it took me about 1.5 years to save up for the enough money for the exact PC that I wanted that could run at the settings that I wanted. So a lot of it's more into forethought, and planning, and I think people are more into like instant gratification. So in a sense, it's like I don't understand the complaints about it.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Scourge? Play your Scourge card, as MuRdA said.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding. What do you think on this topic?
The reason people are frustrated on the forums and such is because there's still so many outstanding performance issues, even after all the performance updates. And in a lot of ways, it's regressed. I mean, some machines are running better. I'm getting higher overall frames, but I'm getting like crazy input lag now. Like after my game's open for an hour, it's like chewing up like 4 gigs.
It's like getting like a memory leak or something weird.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of frustration in that people are seeing all these, developers trying to optimize for console.
Yeah.
And,
well,
they're
we
sitting
have,
there like rubber us.
on that note, we do have 2 kind of separate teams. So we do have our PS4, we have our PC. So they'll be working simultaneously. So we're still going to continue to be putting our best foot forward, as people have stated, on PC as well. But obviously right now we are trying to put a lot of resources into PS4 just to get it launched, get it done right. And for those of you who have gotten to check it out at E3, it's playing quite smoothly and quite nicely. I don't think anyone had any terrible experiences. But go ahead, continue on, Scourge, if you have anything more to add.
I mean, all else I have to add is, just echoing the same thing MuRdA said, that I don't really care about graphics. I mean, I play like ASCII games sometimes. I mean, graphics to me are just a way of conveying, what's happening in the game, visual information. And, consoles have a huge disadvantage in that they can't, go into their I&I settings and tweak this and tweak that. Like, I know some people that set their mouse sensitivity down to like 4 decimal points. I mean, there's so much customization that you have with the PC.
That's true. That is the beauty of playing things on PC. And I know some of you guys are giving some opinions. Feel free to continue adding your opinions in chat. I'll try to read them off on any of the topics that we're discussing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the beauty of being a PC player, is that a lot of times you do have the option to change your graphics, whereas on console you don't. You don't get that beauty. And I know MuRDA's gotten shit from Tremel about playing on low graphics. But I mean, as competitive gamers, a lot of us do. We'll turn everything down whenever we're not videotaping it, because we want to, not have to deal with any issues that are going to interfere with lag or performance at all.
Yeah, well, that one of the main complaints about running on high and also textures is the bloom. So I'm curious to see how much that's going to affect the future. I mean, I'd rather run on high, but like these guys too. I mean, if it's a choice between me being able to see somebody more clearly and being able to shoot him around a corner, or having all kinds of stuff in the way, I'd rather be able to see him clearly and turn that stuff off. But if you could actually see, have a pretty good high fidelity graphics and remove the bloom, that's pretty huge in my opinion. You just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I guess move on to the next topic here that you have. I'll read off this little blurb. PlanetSide 2 is in the unique situation a non-instance shooter where PC and PS4 players, well, we kind of have instances, PS4 players will be playing with the same rules. Based on the limitations of the controller, are there any ideas how the meta will evolve on the console? What advice do the PC veterans have to give to newer incoming PS4 players? And I actually really love this. I think it's a good question that you had here, Kid. So, like, why don't we start off with Scourge, since we ended with you last time. Why don't you kind of say, what do you think the meta will evolve to on console? Do you think it will change? Because it is a different game. Like, I don't think PS4 players have really experienced something like PlanetSide. I think, you know, MAG kind of did something similar in the sense that they did have a large group, but it wasn't on the same scale, nor was the world as massive.
Well, thinking back when Connery launched, my only advice I can really give is buy a second flak arm for your Macs. There'll be a lot of people like day one buying, rocket pods, stuff like that, and that was a huge problem when the game launched. Is that you start out the game with like one flak arm
or AMS, the AMS attachment. Well,
right,
back then you didn't have it as your default.
And I mean, nowadays almost everybody has played long enough that they have the stuff that's really important. But I don't know. I think over time though, it's gonna end up just like any other server. Like, I don't really think it's gonna be that different. I mean, the only thing I can see is maybe reverse maneuvering in a plane will be harder with the controller because you can't like bind toggle analog or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, the key bindings will be weird. But
I mean, that's like
it's not a big deal.
Well, it's a pretty quintessential skill, isn't it? I think remember back when they were talking about nerfing the reverse maneuver, everybody was all up in arms. I think even you were on that panel.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Scourge was definitely on that panel.
So I imagine an air game where you just simply can't do it, or it's so difficult. You know what I mean? It'd be pretty interesting, I think.
All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, Scourge?
Oh, really?
All right. MuRdA, what about you?
I'd say, well, I don't know. There's probably a bunch of things you could give for advice, but maybe the thing that comes to mind first would be don't focus so much on feeling like you have to upgrade your guns, because I get that all the time. People want to spend their first 1,000 certs on a new gun, and it's really...
The default guns are really nice, you guys. We tried our best to make the default guns really nice.
And you can get, a scope for 5 certs. You can get, your first rank of nanoweave for 1 and your second for 10. Like, you can get so many more things that are useful to you than just feeling like you have to get a new gun. The guns aren't direct upgrades like you might be familiar with in other games and things like that. They're really just alternatives. And I'd look at that once you have thousands and thousands of certs, accumulated before you bother trying to get a new gun, with the exception maybe of the burster arm, like Scourge said, or something very specific to a role.
Well, you get one burster.
General,
You get one burster on your max, and then you get the other like AV related one. So.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as the controls go, I haven't really played console games since like PlayStation 2 era. So I mean, I'm way behind. I don't even know
how, you are behind.
Like, modern shooters and MMOs and things like that even work with the UI and the controls. I looked at the JPEG image that was posted of the planned control scheme, or at least where it's at right now for PlanetSide 2 on PS4. But I mean, I'm like such a keybind freak with my Naga with 1 million buttons on it and all my keyboard binds. So I'm really kind of curious how even just the simplest things.
Man, how did you play like The Last of Us or Grand Theft Auto 5? Where have you been?
I haven't, so yeah. But yeah, no, I'm curious more than anything how it's going to play out. I do want to play PlanetSide on PlayStation 4 so I can get a feeling for it, get some affinity. It's not something I'm going to prioritize, but I want to be able to kind of relate to the community, answer questions about it and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the control scheme plays out, probably more than anything else.
Okay. That makes sense, because how you set up your control keys matters a lot. I mean, if you play any games and people mess it up, I see a lot of transition. Like, for instance, I'm going to use like Dark Souls, for example. When they transition to PC, I'm just like, what is happening? Whoever did this transition has no idea how to use a keyboard and mouse because it is effed up. So, yeah, it does matter a lot. But fortunately, we have really great players on our side as far as game developers who actually play on like various different consoles. Tracy, for instance, she's amazing. She's kicking everyone's butt. When we were doing our E3 demos, she's one of like the top players on there. She's gotten the most kills. She's insane. But you know, not all of us are console players. I'm definitely not the best console player, but I do play a lot of games on console because, for instance, like the two that I gave for examples, those are ones that I couldn't play on PS4 or on PC. So I was like, well, I really want to play them, so I'm going to check them out on PS4. What about you, kidRiot? What do you think about this? And do you have any tips for new players?
Yeah, I was thinking like when I think of a PS4 player, I think of my nephew and the times that I actually sat him in front of the computer to play PlanetSide 2 on the PC, and that alone was confusing. But I mean, for somebody that's used to a controller to come to a keyboard and mouse, it's really confusing. So maybe if he has a controller in his hands, it'll be easier. But also, I think the barrier to entry in PlanetSide 2 is so high that I think the number one thing I would say to players is to not give up. Because I remember before we had any of these competitive events, the highlight of me playing PlanetSide 2 was being in a squad or platoon with my friends and like accomplishing really cool stuff, which at the time was like fighting 2-to-1 odds or dropping on a tech plan or something. And a lot of those stories are going to be, told all over again on the PS4. And so I'm really saying just to not give up and hopefully, I don't know if there's a tutorial plan, but hopefully that barrier to entry is a lot easier for the PS4 players. So I think if it's an awesome game and you're able to capture people within the first 5 minutes, then I mean, with the way PS2 is, you could have players that'll be playing for years. So it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah. I can't wait to see how many people are actually playing on PS4. And I mean, I already have a PS4 because I've been playing quite a few games on it already that have only come out for console. So I'm curious as well to see how it goes, and I'm hoping that there's a lot more players who come in and play it and experience this game because it is fantastic. Right. But I will agree with Scourge. I mean, going back to his initial thing was that PC players are, they have a lot of things that haven't been addressed yet, and those things trickle down into the PS4. So there are issues that we need to address on the forefront before we even launch to PS4. So I do agree with that, and I want to come back to that because I know there are people who are going to continue to say that to me nonstop. But we're aware of it, right? We're aware of it. We know we need to work towards those goals and make sure that the things that we do on PC transfer over to PS4. I've had a couple of people asking about how we're doing patches and servers and things like that, and we've already talked about it quite a bit, is where we want these to be separate servers because PlayStation does have a weird process with getting builds in. So if we were to say, here, PC players all have this build, and then we had PS4 players who are playing on those same servers, they would be at a disadvantage or have some weird messed up build that wouldn't correlate to the ones that other people are playing against them. So that's the main reason why we haven't put them together. Because, I mean, honestly, you can buy a keyboard and mouse that can go with your PS4. So console players who are like, I don't want to use a controller, you can use a keyboard and mouse with your console. It's not something that's been new. It's pretty straightforward. Did you want to touch any other things on about PS4, Riot, or are you ready to rock and roll into Liberators and the tank stuff?
No, let's move on.
All right. Anyone else have anything to say in regards to that?
No, I'm good.
All right. Okay, so Liberator and tank changes, and I know we've put that up on our forums quite a bit here, so you guys can check it out. I'll just go over these two discussion points that Kid put up here. He said, while the changes to Liberators aren't set in stone, SOE seems to be following a similar plan to how they adjusted the Harasser. Is there potential for SOE to provide too many changes at once for the Liberators? And going back to that, if you don't know what happened with the Harasser, is we kind of looked at it and then we changed like a whole bunch of things rather than going, oh, let's tweak this one thing and see how it affects the gameplay. Instead, the designers decided, well, if we do all these things, this is what needs to be done. And then we had to make some changes afterwards to readjust it once again. So what do you guys think? Do you think we're making that same Harasser mistake as far as trying to change too many things? Or do you think some of the changes are fine, or generally they're okay, or you want to test them out first? Let's start with you, Scourge. What do you think?
I remember reading Kevmo's post when he put it up, talking about like, here's what we're talking about doing, and I thought it was really funny that he was going on that like oh, Liberators don't involve enough risk, but now we're gonna make it so tanks can just moonwalk out of every fight. I mean, I don't know. It's like SOE never seems to do these things in half measures. It's like you guys buffed the Liberator into being overpowered, and now it's going to be nerfed into being worse than it was before, when it was considered underpowered before these changes. So I don't know. a lot of the problem though is that there's so many changes happening at once, or at least being proposed to happen, that it's kind of like you just can't really predict it at this point, like what's going to happen. Like one of the changes happening to Liberators is the damage resistance is being reduced, but the reason that it was brought up so much is because tank fire used to be so easy to like hit libs with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if libs were trying to, you know, get in close and do anything useful. But you know, now tanks should, in theory, not be able to hit planes, you know, as well. You know, with their velocities being reduced. So
Yeah, and the gravity.
who knows? I mean, maybe those two things will balance out. Maybe they won't. But it just feels like too many things all at once.
What would you suggest should be done if with the current changes that they have? Do you think there's some things that they could just tweak a little bit like lighter, or do you think that they could remove some of the changes that they're wanting to change?
Well, I think they should address the parts about the Liberator that annoy people the most first, and just kind of go like in order, and you know, queue up like, okay, here's future changes we can do, and we'll, like, just every week there'll be another change.
Just
if
add a new
nothing
one.
happens, you know, because that's I see that a lot actually, where there's like a little tweak or something, and it's like I don't even notice it. But you know, the tweaks add up, as we saw with the harasser.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Riot? Or yeah, go ahead, Riot.
I think
You have this
I
like
agree-
looking, like pondering.
Yeah, no,
look
I was
going,
thinking about what he
"Hmm."
was saying. I always like the scenes of Scourge. He's a smart dude. No, but I think they are falling into the similar trap, and I mean I understand it maybe for the harasser, maybe there hadn't been that big of a tweak to a vehicle like that, but now we've had the harasser change, so you have the idea where maybe, you know, the lesson learned. Okay, let's not do 4 things. Let's do 1 or 2 things. And like Scourge said, let's do the most annoying things with the Liberator, which, you know, what might mean different things to different people, and that's, you know, up in the air.
Mhm.
But the developers are the ones with the numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think in the post, that they edited the post on the Liberator changes, and he said, yes, the Tank Buster is going to be nerfed no matter what, and it's not because of what we think is going on. It's because what we know is going on, and that it's simply too effective. And say, okay, I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? I think the game should pull away from like one-hit kills or one-clip kills in a sense. But at the same time, it's like, I think the idea is to get these vehicles that are really strong in certain situations and really weak in other situations. And right now, the Liberator is just too good in too many situations. But if you make it too weak in all situations, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like the harasser. Nobody's going to use it.
Figure out its role and be like, here's
Right.
its role on the battlefield when it's using X and Y. Here's its role when it's using Z and D, and let's make sure that it's powerful in those situations, but weak in other ones for sure.
Right. I mean, even Higby himself. I was watching like doing the E3 interview. I'm going to say this
Yeah.
again. He was talking about how PlanetSide 2 is basically like a video war game or a fictional war
Oh
game.
yeah, for sure.
And so the
It's like a
idea
war
being
sim.
that it's rock paper scissors. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You don't want to have. It's like there has to be. And I know it's hard. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing the job that they do. But as a player, we feel what happens. You know, what the changes happen. We feel the way a gun works. We feel the way a vehicle responds. And so some people have certain preferences. But I think the idea is establish these rules for these vehicles and stick to it. You know what I mean? It's like it's too much bouncing around. Like I don't know what the purpose of the Liberator changes are. I mean, the tank changes I can understand a bit more because they're very immobile, you know, when they're actually effective. So I could see that. But as far as Liberator goes, I think it's kind of bouncing around too much, you know?
Okay. I mean, that's a fair feedback for them, and I know, you know, they watch a lot of the Friday Night Apps discussion panels, and, you know, it's always interesting to hear what people would like to see come out of this. I see some people in chat saying, "Oh, I wish the Liberator was just an air-to-air gunship," or, you know, but then there's some people who are like, "I think the Liberator should be a vehicle that goes against, you know, armor." So it's definitely something where everyone has their own opinion, as you stated before.
Right.
What is BB's opinion, MuRdA, over there?
There you go.
I don't know. She likes treats at the moment, so that she's trying to attack the bag to get more treats.
Well, she's a cat,
What's
so she
happening?
couldn't care less, right?
Yeah,
It's only what pleases her, basically.
she doesn't use vehicles anyway.
She only runs at guns. Oh man. So what is your take on this?
I mean, I don't know that I have something nearly as interesting to add to the vehicle discussion as kidRiot or Scourge did. I mean, even with the patch notes that just came out recently for test, there's even more changes. So it's kind of ongoing. I don't like to get, you know, too deeply involved in different things before they've, even really happened. In all likelihood, I'm sure it's going to continue to change as far as the specifics of the tuning of libs and tanks and whatnot.
She's definitely trying to get in that bag
yeah,
or whatever's
see?
happening.
See
It's
that?
it's very
See, that's
loud
the
in my
thing.
ears.
Yeah, I was going to say. Hold on. I'll have to distract her momentarily.
Scourge your face, man. do you hate animals as well as children? What's going on?
Oh no!
He hates everything.
Allergies.
Jesus.
Allergies. He's like sensing the allergies coming through the computer. Okay. Well, Kid, you were gonna mention something else. Was there something else that you wanted to mention in regards to the changes and how many changes that they're making at once?
Yeah, I just think it's too much. And I mean, who knows? I'm sure there's a medium for everything that happens. You know what I mean? So I'm sure might be part of the plan. But I think the idea, what Scourge was saying, is right. Do one or two things, like the major things, like maybe do like a tank buster nerf. Leave everything else, see what happens. See how, if libs have to do 2 passes instead of 1, that in itself is a huge thing. Because having to drop down and then do another pass or whatever, pilots do can change the dynamic of the, the air to ground game. The tank thing, I think, is really exciting because I've always, when PlanetSide 2 was being announced, you know what I mean? I always thought what would happen in PlanetSide 2, what would happen in PlanetSide 1, where tanks are always, fighting, they're always moving, a lot of movement, they're always shooting at each other. But in PlanetSide 2, it just didn't happen because I'm not sure exactly why. I'd have to think about that. But I always envisioned like a lot of moving combat.
Yeah, I feel like with PlanetSide, the bases were much more spread out.
Right, there's a lot more room.
Yeah, so you'd have more of this open space between them where you would need to be bringing your tanks in. And so you'd want to be moving and using the trees. Right. And I just think there was more space between those bases for that to happen. Whereas like in PlanetSide 2, we have a lot of bases that are much closer together. It's much faster to get there.
Well, you have the towers that are close and all that.
Yeah, that's true too. So let's move on to the next thing, which is still on the recent Liberator and tank changes comments, which is what effect will turret stabilization and shell velocity / gravity changes have on armor versus armor and armor versus infantry combat? And I'll let Scourge, why don't you start us off with that?
Well, the thing about turret stabilization is that it's a buff for tanks. On the other hand, I don't mind it as a buff because I think it's a quality of life thing. It's like it's really annoying when you're in a tank and your gun's just like going all over the place, and it's just so it's like that's fine. It's just that's the thing is you have to weigh that against the fact that means that they will be able to more accurately shell spawn rooms while driving around in circles. I mean, so
that's not fun. What about you, Riot?
I think we're gonna have to see. I think there's not just the turret stabilization, but it's also the lowering. If I read it right, the lowering the velocity on the heat and the AP, but increasing the velocity in the HE, but increasing gravity for all guns. So I don't know if it means that maybe tanks are gonna have to find different angles to shell. Because the big thing with armor, and everybody's been in that situation.
I think it depends on the vehicle too.
Right. Well, yeah. It could be anything. Like you spawn in a spawn room ready to defend the base, and you can't even step out of it. You can't even step out of the shields, and I don't know if these changes are going to affect that. Maybe make it easier to actually defend bases, because I think maybe the ideal situation would be that as long as there's time left on the defense, that you should be able to defend the base as infantry. You know what I mean? But I think we're all infantry players here, but armor should have its place too. And I think a lot of that, you could see that there's different ideas regarding that, because you look at Indar, Esmir, Marish, and even now Hassan, I can't wait to see Hassan. And that's the idea of how vehicles can affect the spawn rooms and how vehicles can suppress infantry. So I think there's a lot of ideas on it, and it's evolving. But I'm really interested to see how this change will affect that and how it'll affect ground combat. Like I'm hoping you'll see a lot more armor out there. So I think it's pretty potentially exciting. Tentative thumbs up, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Trego was saying that PS2 doesn't have tank skirmishes because there is no third-person driving / shooting. There is third-person. You can switch to third-person, but I don't know where you were going with that or how that really affects.
No crosshairs.
What was that?
No crosshairs when you're in third.
Yeah, no crosshairs when you're in third.
Well,
but do you think that would really affect it that greatly? I don't think that's like the major problem. Yeah.
I think
nice idea, though. I like where you're going with the thought process, but I don't really think that's the main issue. What about you, MuRdA? I mean, I know that you were saying primarily that you're more of an infantry dude, but sometimes you hop in some vehicles where you got to get to places.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the turret stabilization thing, I pretty much agree with what Scourge was saying. I guess the one thing that I can say that I hope comes out of all of these changes is that even if they buff vehicles in other areas, we end up seeing less and less of the tanks or libs out at hundreds of meters shelling, a door to a spawn room or to a building or something, and just making it completely impossible for infantry to even retaliate to that, other than redeploying, going back to the sank, like pulling another vehicle, like something like that. Because that's the single most frustrating thing for me in the entire game, and I can't imagine it's too fun, really, to just be sitting still and just shelling. Like shelling from 250 meters. So if they can make the gameplay more compelling, up close and personal, provide more risks and stuff like that, but also reduce the ease of just sitting somewhere and spamming, then ultimately I'd be happy.
I have a counter argument to that, and hopefully Scourge chimes in. I'm just going to approach this from this direction.
Okay.
I think the reason a lot of the times you get stuck in your spawn is because people aren't actually using the appropriate response, right? So instead of sitting in your spawn and hoping to get a rocket off, what you and your squad should be doing is going back, redeploying into vehicles to counter their vehicles. But that usually doesn't happen.
Yeah, or coming from the other side, like if they're all around your base, going to a base that's nearby, coming back and flanking them from behind. But yeah, that's more of an organized format of combat. You don't always get in a situation where there's people actually working together like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, for the solo player, that's often not really an option. And I mean, sure, PlanetSide, gets better in numbers and in organization, but I mean, for the lone wolf or the new player or somebody like myself who's just playing by myself, a lot of the time, even if I go and do that, my one person doing that without the other pubs
they would just turn around and be like, oh, look at this guy.
Well, MuRdA, what you could do, you could lead a public squad or a public platoon, man.
Or I could orbital strike them instead. I would
that's always the orbital strike.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, do we want to keep discussing anything else in regards to Liberators and Tanks, or would we like to move on to our initial 3 weeks ago discussion of implants? We've changed up the questions and the topics a little bit more, just to be more relevant. But do we want to switch over? Do you guys have something more you want to talk about? No. Good. Okay.
Actually, the only thing I wanted to say, and it was about the optimization of PS2. There was the H1Z1 stream when they were talking about the building the bases for H1Z1. They were seeing how, since they're using the same engine that basically I think Landmark is using and PlanetSide 2 is using, that they actually developed ways to build the bases that were more efficient. Yeah. So they transported those tools into the PS2 tool set. So you never know if one dev team is going to help another dev team. So it's really cool that they're using the same engine. So
So the Forge Light engine, if you guys don't know, is a ground up engine that we have built within SOE internally. We've had some ups and downs with it because we are not an engine building company. We are a game development company, so we've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations with it, but in the end we feel like it's definitely going to be something that's going to help us along the way, just because we can build core systems that then can transfer to other system or other games, or we can even make them more modular. I mean, I like to give the guild system example, just because a lot of people can relate to that, because everyone has been in a guild, right, or an outfit or a clan of some sort in any game, where we can have like that default system and that tree, and then we can like bring that over to another game and be like, oh well, we'd like to add on to that, and then and then you can choose which game you want to put those add-ons on and things like that. So I think that everything coming out of this has only been beneficial for us. There have definitely been some wonky parts, but we're making it, we're doing it, we're having fun, and it's I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes and how far the engine will take us. You don't really get a lot of games where you can have that many people in one area, whereas we have been able to make that happen, and it's taking games to another level. And for me personally, as a huge MMO player, I feel like that's a very important thing. So let's move on to our discussion panel about implants. So initially we were going to be talking about, how it was going to affect the gameplay without actually having played through it other than on a test server. Now it's been out. People have experienced it. There were lots of people who had negative ideas of what it was going to turn out to be, and now we're going to go over all of that. Your negative, your positive, what you see for the future potential of implant system, what you think that it has changed within combat itself. So let's go over the first topic that kidRiot has here, which is, as players we maintain a unique perspective on the systems implemented by SOE. With that in mind, was the implementation of implants a success? So this is their opinion on whether they feel like it wasn't a success. Is it positive or a negative thing for PlanetSide 2? So let's start off with, do you guys think that this system is a success for PlanetSide 2? Yes? No?
Scourge, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Nope. I mean, should I start?
Yeah, you can start.
Well, it depends, because I'm going to say yes. So do you want to start with no, or do you want me to start with yes?
Let's start with yes.
Okay,
we'll start with yes.
Why do you think it's a success, kidRiot?
Okay, well, first off, you have to define what success means.
Okay.
And to me, it means that does it give players another option?
Does it give players some way to progress?
A different way to play the game, to further customize their players. I mean, aside from the grind inherent in such a system, I think that, yeah, it was a success. I mean, for the most part, the implants are pretty, like, if you're going to min-max, it's like people are basically, if you're infantry, using battle hardened, you know, if you're in a vehicle, using targeting. I think the only way they maybe could have varied the implants a bit more, maybe taking bigger risks. Maybe they were a little too safe in the effects on these implants. But for the most part, I mean, I think it does, you know, give you a chance for optimization. And it even gives room for further development in the process. I mean, I know there's been mention of crafting or things like that. Yeah. It could be an interesting system, you know what I mean?
Well, you do have a little bit of crafting. I mean, you can take the different tiers and you can combine them together.
Well, I mean, it can go anywhere, right? I mean, especially if you're talking about H1Z1 coming up and EverQuest next. I mean, eventually you could get to the point where you customize your outfit on base using maybe the implant system. You know, it's all nanites or whatever. So you never know where it's going to go. But for now, for what it is, I think it was pretty much a pretty good success.
So now, for Devil's Advocate, the counterpart, Scourge, what's your opinion? And well, obviously you already said you don't think it's a success. Why do you think it's not a success?
Well, okay, so there's a few key reasons that I think the implant system is a failure. First reason is that the system is not intuitive or easy to understand. Like, I still get people in my stream like, I combined 3 implants and it didn't give me a tier 2. What's up? And, like, you know, then I have to explain to them, no, it's you put 5 in to get a tier.
I think I've walked into your stream when you've been doing that explanation.
Yeah, it's still going on. And, like, I know a lot of people who are just like, nah, I'm just not going to click on that button. It's like, that's just, no, it makes my head hurt when I look at it.
Okay.
And the second problem is that I don't think the system really adds depth. I mean, the implants are just, they're not very powerful. They don't really affect combat. It's like you could play through the game not knowing what implants are and you just wouldn't notice.
So would you prefer them to have a little bit more of a niche, like they are a core part of something in your combat?
I mean, I would prefer that, but at the same time, though, there's kind of a reason for the way that it is. I mean, the thing is, there was so much fear of it being pay to win, and you know, that unfair advantages for veteran players and all this and that. So it's kind of that forced the system to be, you know, boring.
Bland, yeah. I agree with that.
I think it's always, I think to me it's always interesting to hear that perspective, because as game designers, we're always listening to your guys' feedback, and the core thing, like you said, was that people were like, oh, I really don't want that to be something that's power driven, pay to win. You know, the initial implant system went all over the news, all over press, you know, saying that, oh, SOE is getting like a huge influx of players just complaining or even leaving the game because they were upset about the new system, and we hadn't even implemented it. We had just discussed it at that point, the initial. And so when we went back to the drawing board and looking at, like, okay, how can we change this and make it less pay to win in that sense, it was, you know, so things have had to change. And now that we're into that perspective of it, it's, I don't know. What do we do to make it a more core aspect for you in your case?
For me?
Yeah. I think if you stop your camera and start it should fix.
It's, I don't know. I mean, because the pay to win thing is like a serious, you know, it's like people are really afraid of that because there's a lot of MMOs out there that, you know, jump headlong into that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the big thing is that there just has to be implants. Like, I guess the biggest thing I disagree with about the way they did implants is that I disagree with the idea of them being passive.
Okay.
I disagree with the idea that you equip them and that they're constantly
then they're
burning.
just there. Yeah. Okay.
Whereas I would have preferred a system where it was you get like a new ability that you could then activate.
Do you
when
feel
you activate
like
it costs something? So
the counter argument for that is, and I've heard this quite a bit before, is would when we add more abilities like that, does that make you feel like you're playing more of an RPG game rather than an FPS game then at that point when we're continuing to add more abilities onto it?
I don't really see
Or would
the
you prefer it?
concern with that. I mean,
Okay.
it's like there really isn't all that much stuff you do in PlanetSide as an infantry player except, shoot gun, use your class tool, use class ability. That's like your three things, and then I guess you have a pistol too.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean,
it's
at
like
the core of FPS games, it's like, here, I shoot you. You're the bad guy.
Right.
I have gun. You have gun. Let's go.
I don't think you're gonna take away from the game by adding like, new ways of approaching the battlefield. No. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I just feel like there's like, I mean, you look at like Battlefield games, they have tools that you can pick per class that, completely change the way the class plays.
Yeah. And I guess we do have some tools, but it's a little bit different the way that they set up their tools versus ours.
Medkit, C4.
Mm-hmm.
That's what most classes get.
All right. Let's see. MuRdA, what about you? What's your opinion on this? And Scourge, if you want to stop your camera and bring it back up, it might unfreeze for you. There you go. But go ahead, MuRdA.
So, I mean, I'll keep my answer short to this first question just because there's a lot more specifics, I guess, and I don't want to just be repeating myself later. But
Right.
as far as success or not, I'm surprisingly going to take the middle ground and say not yet, but I think it definitely has the potential to be and to really increase the moment-to-moment enjoyment of the game by offering something else. But I don't think it's there yet.
What do you think it needs to do in order to get there?
I mean, I guess it could take a few different angles. I mean, even like the next question, you can kind of take the PS1 approach, or you can kind of take what the PS2 system seems like it wants to do, and maybe expand it out. I think what you guys were saying about being afraid almost of making it too pay to win due to the initial backlash has kind of caused the initial implementation to be a bit conservative. So if you're going to go with like the loot model, for instance, I think you could have more compelling things to actually strive for and to actually want to receive.
Okay.
And I was planning on talking about that a little bit later anyway. But at the moment, I think like when the loot pops up, there's never really anything that could possibly pop up that I would get excited about. And I want to be excited about even, a small chance at finding something that I really actually want in a game where there's some sort of loot. So
Makes sense. So the next question I just want you guys to answer really quick. Maybe we'll do a thumbs up or thumbs down. Do you think it's positive or negative for PlanetSide 2? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Or maybe middle, if you're in the middle ground.
I'm gonna go middle way. Yeah.
I like how each of you did a different one. All right.
This panel's beautiful, man.
It's like the perfect, everyone has a different perspective. So our next thing right here is, as MuRdA was talking about, in PlanetSide 1, implants worked more like perks in modern shooters. Implants were BR based. In PlanetSide 2, implants are completely reliant on certs, random drops, and crafting and station cache. What are the pros and cons of the system used in PlanetSide 2 as opposed to PlanetSide 1? And I don't know if I want to necessarily go back to that because they are very different. But instead, maybe change this question up to be more of like, what would you guys want to see? Would you want it to be more like PlanetSide 1? Would you want it to be more like PlanetSide 2? In PlanetSide 1, you also had like everything was quite different in the sense of how you attain them. I mean, you went into a terminal and then you equipped it and you had like 3 or 4 different slots that you could use, and it didn't drain any resources from you. Whereas in this system, it's much different in the way that you attain it. So I guess we'll start off with you, Kid. Let's hear your opinion on it.
I think if you go towards the more the PS1 approach or the Call of Duty approach with perks, it becomes everybody's going to min max, right? Everybody's going to figure out, okay, if I'm infantry, these are the implants that I want.
These are the 3 that I need, right?
Right. If I'm going to be a vehicle, so there's nothing dynamic about it. There's nothing compelling. I think if you go more towards maybe what Scourge was talking about, where you give an active, or maybe you give like a passive, like a constant
like a passive slot and then a
kind of like Diablo
one.
3, right? Where it's passive, but until you activate it, then you lose the passive and you get an active.
Okay.
Something like that. And so maybe it could be where you jump higher, or for like maybe 5 seconds you have no recoil, or it could be. I mean, it sounds kind of overpowered, but you're just throwing ideas out there, right? Where you have a passive, and then when you activate it,
well, like
your
jumping example, like passively you do jump a little bit higher, but if you use the ability, you get like one giant boost where you could go over a wall, but then it's got to cool down for a little bit. That's like an example. Obviously, that it's like a little bit OP, but it was an example.
Right, it's an example, and the idea being, okay, so you have to make the choice of this implant. Like you have to give the player a reason to choose this implant. and you have to make the player want this over something else. So there's always going to be a loss. Like instead of having three that are awesome, I choose one and I lose this potential idea. You know what I mean? Or this potential effect or ability. So I think I like the implant system. I think it is a success, but also agree that it could be a lot more compelling. And there's a lot of different ways, and it's pretty interesting because in this sense, I think in my opinion, SOE did it right. They went, they kind of took baby steps, which is pretty interesting because like with the Liberator change, you guys are like it's like moon jumps. But I think there's a lot of potential for the system, and it's something that should be constantly looked at and constantly thought of. I hopefully it doesn't go by the wayside. Otherwise, it's just going to be forgotten. Nobody's going to really care about it. And that's, that's a shame, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, we definitely don't want it to be something that you forget about. It should be something that you can look forward to and have a goal, a new goal, right, to attain.
Right, or say you look at like say you're watching a player in like a community clash or even on live server, and he does something, you should be able to say, I know he's using this implant. And that's one of those things that there's no defining characteristics about these. You don't know what anybody's using until they kill you. So there should be something cool attached to him, like an effect, or maybe it changes the way armor looks, or who knows, you know what I mean?
Or when you shoot at them, it has a different effect or something. Yeah, totally.
Right.
I can see that.
Maybe,
I mean, for me personally, that was definitely something I had brought up was I don't know what that person has on them, so I don't know if they have something that counters what I have.
Right.
For sure.
Or if if all of a sudden he hits a button where all of a sudden he fires faster or whatever, to like, hey, I'm going to hide for however many seconds, or I'm not going to attack him, or who knows? There's a lot of variations that you can do.
Makes sense. So Scourge, moving on to you, and if you're in chat and you're with us live, feel free to give your opinions in chat, and maybe they might be something that I can bring into this conversation as well. Go ahead, Scourge.
Kind of went off the rails here. Like I'm confused where the question's going now.
Okay, so the question is originally was about PlanetSide 1 versus PlanetSide 2 implant system, and I would like to take it to a different level of where would you like to see it go instead. And he was kind of talking about PlanetSide 1 and how there were a lot of benefits to the way that was working, and he'd just like to see more active abilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing I was saying, in the last question. And, it's MuRdA said earlier too, like, it'd be cool if it was actually like kind of a loot system. Because the thing is like you have an inventory of implants, I guess, but it doesn't feel like an inventory. It doesn't feel like you're picking anything up. It's like you're killing dudes,
it just auto loot kind of thing.
And it's just like, oh, something just popped up on my screen. I have an implant now. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't even have to like walk over to the dead body or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like the thing about like the PS1 system, I mean, for people that aren't familiar, is you got an implant slot when you got a certain rank. So it was like that was the bad part about it, is that you had to grind quite a bit to be able to fully utilize it. But once you did, though, you got to mix and match all these different implants. Like you could have 3 at once, and all 3 of them could be active. They could be passive. It was up to you.
But let's be honest, a lot of us would use the same ones. Like we figured out what the best ones were, and we used those for the situations that we were in primarily.
People do the same thing in this game.
Exactly.
I mean,
So to me, from a development standpoint, I'm wondering what, like where we could go to make that be something where you want to be swapping it up. You don't always want the same one, or you have a goal to attain to have all of them, right?
I mean, the biggest thing is just having them be different. I mean, like that's the biggest problem with the implants right now. That's why people are like, oh, I can't even tell there's implants, is that they are so minor in effect, and they don't like feel like I just killed that guy because I have an implant, or I just died to that guy because I have an implant.
Yeah.
So,
it's like you're like, I died to that guy because he has a weapon and he killed me.
Yeah,
you don't know what bonuses he has going on. So I'm liking that that's something that you guys are all agreeing on, because that's easy to bring back to the development team, going like, hey, look, all these people think this, and it's up to them to decide what they want to do. But it is interesting to hear that, and I don't know what other people are thinking in chat. Seems like people are agreeing that it's hard to tell, like what does beta do for me? Can I tell the difference between that versus not having it, or from someone who has it versus not having it? I guess MuRdA, what's your opinion?
Well, I mean, just really quickly, I guess to touch on the PS1 thing, I would rather the PS2 system continue the direction that it's going as opposed to going back to the PS1 system. Even though I really liked the implants in PlanetSide 1, I think it was done well. It was for a different game at a different time. There wasn't station cache. There wasn't all of these other variables. And it worked as just kind of like a passive thing. As you guys were saying, you kind of min-maxed it depending on the situation, or maybe there was a lot that you just used almost 100% of the time, and they became like, you know, suit slots or whatever. You just chose what you wanted, and that was the end of it. And, you know, so I feel like that's kind of, I mean, yeah, you could do that in PlanetSide 2, but it wouldn't be any different than choosing Nanoweave or whatever. You know, it's just one other choice and then you forget about it. So I definitely prefer going along the route of making it more compelling, interesting, more choices that you have to make. And I guess I go back to just saying about the loot system. I think that's kind of an interesting idea that you guys went with the loot, you know, quote unquote loot system for the implants. But in any game that I've played, MMO or RPG or both or otherwise, the loot was never really about like the trash items or the standard or the common items that you'd come across every couple of seconds or every couple of minutes. It was always about that chance at that really amazing item or something that would really help you out, or you'd get it and you go, oh wow, you know, that made a difference. And even if it was like a 0.01% chance to get that, and it's not something that happened every day, that's kind of what kept you, you know, striving on, interested in checking out, you know, what you just found or whatever. So I guess maybe one of this, you know, the recommendations I'd make to even the current system would be to allow tier 3 implants and ultra chargers to drop as loot. Because if you get an ultra charger and it's worth 750 certs and you just happen to find it, even if it's a 0.001% chance, like that's pretty awesome. Like you don't just get 750 certs for no reason. So I think even just having a small chance at finding the quote unquote best versions of things, like I was saying before, if I find even a tier 2 implant now, or one of the lesser chargers, it doesn't really do anything for me. It just kind of keeps sustaining where I'm at. It's not really exciting. Okay. So I think with loot, it requires some sort of at least chance at getting that epic item. So
do you guys all agree? Would you like to see even like a rare chance of getting some of the most uber tiers of implants?
Yeah, I think the problem in this case is those uber tier implants aren't really uber tier.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean it goes hand in hand with more interesting / better options as well, of course. But yeah.
I don't know, like you could potentially, I just thought about this, you could potentially tie them to like weekly achievements, you know what I mean? Not everybody plays the same amount of time, obviously, but you could tie it into like some kind of achievements that you achieve during a period of time that gives you a chance to get to certain
like
implant.
a higher chance.
Right, and it's nothing that you're going to go out of your way to do, it's what you do anyway. But if you excel at like air combat, you're going to get more like an air-themed implant.
Okay,
you know?
I like that. The more you do a certain aspect of, you know, gameplay, that you have a higher chance of getting something that's relevant to that.
Now, the problem is, it's like the guy that just flies out of the game, you want him to be, you know, just as effective, but obviously he's not. I mean, he's not anyway, because the guy with the year experience is going to blow him out of the water. There's nothing you could do to make that even. But I don't know. I got to say, like, I don't envy the developers' jobs, man. It's pretty intense, you know. Like, if you go too much this way, if you go too much that way, and it's a really fine line. I mean, you're talking, who knows?
Well, let's move into the next topic then, which is how do implants affect the average player? And kidRiot is saying that the average player in this case is, you know, a mid-BR player with no experience boost, having to decide between spending certs on infantry or vehicle upgrades and maintaining their implants. As experienced players, what can we recommend players facing these decisions to buy or purchase or use for implants in that regard? So let's start off with Kit. Actually, MuRdA, why don't you start? Because I don't think we've started with you in a while. What would you recommend to new players or mid-tier players or the average player, I guess, in regards to implants?
I mean, using that definition of the average player, I wouldn't really recommend spending, like, assuming they don't want to spend station cash, okay, just putting that on the table. I wouldn't recommend spending your certs on implant packs, like, at any point in time when you're a new, you know, or average player or somebody who's just not necessarily earning the certs or wanting to spend the station cash to really afford to be able to do that, because I mean it's a big sink if you just dump certs or station cash into implant packs, kind of almost gambling in a sense, hoping to get something. And at least in the current state of implants, I don't think there's anything that's game changing enough that you're going to really benefit from that over getting those things we were talking about earlier, upgrades for your guns, your classes, your vehicles. So I'd recommend doing that first, and just trying to play for your implants, getting what you can get. Battle Hardened is an extremely powerful tier 1 implant, so if you can kind of, find that, or get enough charge to maintain something like that, that would be cool. Enhanced targeting, of course, is baseline in the sense that you don't need to find it, so you have that. But I was thinking the other day, what would it be like if enhanced targeting was truly baseline and it was absolutely free, and everybody could just use it at any time without draining any implant energy, or maybe it drains such a small amount of energy, below the tier 1 level, just to have some sort of alternative for those players who don't want to, or can't afford to invest, and not feel like they're getting shafted at the same time. So
It was standard, what, like 6 months ago, wasn't it? Enhanced targeting, like the being able to see hit point
oh
bars
right,
and
like a
everything.
long time ago, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they removed it, and I was like, you know what, I bet they're going to bring it back as an implant. And
Yeah.
Well, it was an implant in the original PlanetSide, so
yeah,
yeah.
And one of the 3 that I used.
yeah. Well, I think one of the 3 that everyone and their mama used. So, Kid, you're already up on the screen. What about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with MuRdA on this one.
Okay.
When you're a low BR player or just a new player and you have no experience boost, spend your certs on one decent infantry class and one decent vehicle. The implants will come. I mean, enhanced targeting. I like that it was basically the default implant. I mean, it's pretty strong in what it is, and it gives players the right idea to look for certain targets. I mean, if you're in the air, I mean, knowing between two tanks just lower hit points will help you a lot. I mean, experienced guys are going to know, I mean, they're going to probably be able to take 2 out at once. But the beginners, maybe they only got that one shot at that one vehicle. And, that in itself is worth it. And now the thing that makes me curious is whether they even are able to earn enough certs, like an hour to sustain even enhanced targeting. I have no idea. Because, I'm used to, like, I've had 100 bonus, 100% bonus to experience since I started playing.
Yeah.
And I'll have it for this first year.
Someone else was saying that it was like 20 points per hour or something like that was what they felt was the average for players.
Yeah, I had the math in the Google Doc. I don't know why I deleted it.
What about you, Scourge? What is your opinion? Are you with these guys? Do you feel like, as a mid-average tier player, that you should just not really focus on implants?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like we've been saying the whole time that they don't really do much right now. So you can pretty much just pretend they don't exist, and it's fine. I mean, eventually, the passive drop rate is such that you'll just get a whole ton of implants and chargers just playing the game. And my advice is go to the charge screen, check that little like auto charge box, equip Battle Hardened in every loadout, never go back.
Yeah,
it's just like all you really have to worry about.
All right.
I mean, I guess as a vehicle player and a max player, there's different implants that are useful, but like Battle Hardened is considered to be like one of the best implants right now because of the fact that it's tier 1, which means that you just picking up chargers, you're almost,
guaranteed to have it almost, yeah.
Right. To be able to, and to be able to sustain it too, because it's not a tier 3. Like, that's the problem with running like clearer vision and stuff like that, which a lot of people talk about, is that that drains energy really fast.
You have to be attaining a lot of energy to be able to keep it up, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about it too, like those guys that are running those tier 3 implants, obviously, let's assume they know what they're doing, and to be able to actually sustain it, you're not going to be doing what the average player is doing, which is running in a Zerg, waiting 7 minutes for a base to cap. You're going to be involved in action nonstop, constantly getting that experience. So, I mean, you run into those people that, my opinion is that more than likely they'll be in situations that, it's more combat, more experience, more action. So I think it's a pretty interesting argument too, if you want to take it further. What it takes to sustain these things, and what playstyle can support certain implants. But at the same time, the implants in and of themselves, aside from the tiers, aren't compelling enough to actually draw those conclusions, I think. But it could be an interesting argument.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next one, which kind of goes into being able to maintain / get them. And so we have our fourth topic is discussion on implants will inevitably run towards like the pay to win. And I think that, we've already had that discussion a million times, which is it pay to win? Obviously, there is a way to pay to win, not pay to win, but like to purchase them. But, as you guys have said, that it's not something that's giving you a huge power boost in combat that you're like, you need to pay for it. Do players with full memberships on top of 50% boost or players with disposable income have an advantage over players who don't have either of those? And I guess that's the discussion about this. Do you guys feel like someone who pays is going to have a massive advantage over someone who doesn't?
Before we start, I just want to know. I think I posed this question before I knew what was going to
Yeah.
happen with the implants. You know what I mean? This was what, like 3 weeks ago. So
Mhm.
hindsight, I guess, is 2020.
Yeah. So now that you've seen it come out, do you feel that players have that advantage if they have purchased them or if they plan to purchase them in the future? Go ahead, kid.
I think I think initially it was. I mean, the thing is, when we were going to first do the panel, it was going to be with like 2 days experience with implants,
Yeah.
and so the idea with the drop weights. I mean, then they had cap limits to how many implants you can run a day.
Mhm.
There were certain things where it was believed that it was going to be pay to win, but I think it's such a touchy subject that maybe in this case, well, I mean, obviously it's not pay to win because there's no one implant that's going to make everything better, which I
Yeah.
think is good. I mean, battle hardened is super strong, but with the reduced flinch, I mean, if you introduced battle hardened with the old flinch system, it would have been, yeah, definitely like OP. But right now it's to the point where it's not going to really affect you too much. So I don't think it's pay to win at all. But I think once we start getting more compelling implants and the system develops, that it potentially can be.
And how do
Because I
you
mean,
feel about that? Do you think that that's something that should happen or shouldn't happen?
well, I think it ties into what I was just saying too, that those guys that usually have 100% experience boosts, or those guys that are usually, let's call them like the top players, are involved in situations where they know how to farm, they know how to get experience per hour, they know to put themselves in certain situations, whether it's a base, a tower, whatever, to farm experience. And so those certs per hour or whatever, or the implants are just a byproduct of the natural playstyle.
Hmm.
And so if the argument could be, well, hey, he's running more implants than me. Well, hey, change your play style. You know what I mean? Don't just do, what I call like the path of least resistance. Experiment with your play style.
But
And
do
it's
you
hard.
think that people should have to experiment and change their hairstyle or their hairstyle? I'm looking at the hair comments in
Yeah.
chat, so I'm saying their play style in order in order to attain something that they want.
Yeah, I think they
Okay.
should. I mean, it's like any FPS. You know what I mean? When you go up against good players, you get rewarded in a sense. But in this case, you get implants.
All right. What about you guys? How do you feel about this? Scourge, pull out your Scourge card. Do you feel
Um,
like it's pay to win? Do you think it should go that way? Do you feel like, as kidRiot said, as we progress further into the system, that you feel like it's going to go that route?
Well, see, here's the biggest problem is that the system was designed to be constantly slowly burning. Like the thing you have to realize about chargers, the way that chargers works, is that chargers basically are implants that only have one use. They're just broken down implants. But so that's the thing is the whole system is designed to be constantly chewing through implants. It's not a big deal because you can keep your one implant that you like. But that's the thing though is that in order to make money off the system, like I can't see how S-Wing makes money off the current
No,
system.
there's no way right now.
It's like it's so easy to just play and not even spend certs. And
Yeah.
if you do start spending certs, it's like then there you go. Like I'm sitting on 10K certs all the time now. So I mean the thing though is like I honestly feel like they would have made more money if they just sold implants like weapons.
Yeah.
Where
Like as a separate item.
700 SC and you get an implant and you just get that one implant for that. So but
And I mean, that was kind of the initial proposal, you remember? And like media freaked out, players
Right.
freaked out. It just people went nuts. And they
And the
weren't
reason-
they weren't even like anything super OP. They were the exact same stuff that you guys are seeing now, maybe with a little bit tweaks to make them like a little less OP, but they were very similar to what they are now and people were freaking out about it because it was going to change gameplay drastically.
Yeah.
well, the reason people are freaking out is because you were spending that money and then it would like evaporate. It would go away.
Yeah.
I mean that's the thing that bothered people about the implant system. But that's the problem though is like
You want the
they're gonna-
persistence of it if you're going to pay for it.
right. Like you want to feel like I own this
Yeah.
because I paid for it.
Mhm.
But that's the thing is they're at some point I see S-Suite cranking down the implant drop rate. Like they have to. It's crazy right
Yeah,
now.
I know that internally we have talked about the economics of it all, for sure.
Yeah, you could correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think they lowered the charger drop rate too. I think I read something about that somewhere, where they lowered I think it was on a Reddit thread. One of the devs posted that they lowered not the implant drop rate, but the actual charger drop rate. So I'm not sure how that's.
I know that there was discussion about it, but I've been gone for like a week for E3, so
Yeah.
I don't know what has changed in all that time period. But yeah, I know that they have definitely been discussing the economics of it and figuring out, how many people have attained X and where they're at with that. And for sure, I'm with Scourge. A lot of people we're just sitting on certs at this point, waiting for something to spend it on. So hopefully.
Yeah, but Scourge is the 1%er.
Yeah, he is on the higher percentile of that. But there are quite a few people who are sitting on a lot of certs. I mean, we look at all that data all the time now, so for sure. What about you, MuRdA?
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead. Okay.
No, it's okay.
All right, MuRdA, what about you?
I mean, I of course agree with everything that was said so far. So I'm just the only thing I think I really can add to this question is I haven't spent any station cash on implants so far, and I'm somebody who spends a lot of station cash, so that says something, I guess. But for what it's worth, on one of my characters, I had a handful of certs. So I purposely, on the first night that implants were released, I purposely spent 5,000 certs on the 5-pack, so however many 5-packs that is, to see what I could get. I more or less got a lot of things, a handful of tier 3s once I crafted up, and all of the tier 1s and probably all or most of the tier 2s. I ended up converting 2 of those into ultra chargers, so I had like 32,000 charge right off the bat without actually having to buy the chargers. And then on a different character, I spent nothing on implants, no certs, no station cash, no anything. And now, a month later or whatever, the gameplay for both characters, and even probably only a week later, is pretty much the same. Like battle hardened, as they've said, like 95% of the time, I sustain my own charge rate just through EXP loot drops, and it didn't really matter at all if I on the character that I spent the 5,000 certs on, or if that would have been station cash instead. Or the character that I didn't. So, I mean, I think that just kind of reinforces the fact that currently it's not pay to win at all, because I'm doing just as well with 0 spent compared to the other characters. So.
All right. Yeah, everyone kind of had the same opinion on this, and I think, it was initially a big topic prior to it coming out, as people wondering, like, what is going to happen? Is it going to be play to win? And now that people have experienced it, I think their opinions have changed quite a bit.
Well, to be fair, it was watered down a lot too.
Yeah.
Since I think its inception.
Well, I mean, we had a lot of feedback from players, right?
Right. No, I'm actually glad they went this way.
If we didn't change stuff, people were going to get really mad.
Especially with a system like this, I think baby steps are the wiser move.
And then the problem now is that since it is so easily attainable, when you boost it up, you have to do it so slowly, and if you do it drastically, you're going to have like a lot of people being upset. So that's the dev team's got some things to think about in that regard for sure. The next question was about balance, and I think that we've addressed that quite a bit. We've talked about a lot of the balance throughout all these questions, so I feel like I want to move on to the next one, which is what potential mechanisms does implants lay the groundwork for concerning the future of PlanetSide 2? What systems might implants develop into? And I think that this is a really intriguing question, and I'm curious to see what you guys want in that regard, because that's what really matters, right? What do our players find as intriguing systems that could develop from this? So let's start off with you, Kid, since you're right there on the front screen, and this was kind of a question that you've had time to think about since you put this in here. What do you see the system turning into, or where would you like it to go?
Okay, I'm gonna speak, and I'm gonna say, well, balance is not an issue. I'm just gonna think of what's fun, and I've been thinking about it a lot. I think ideally there was one thing that I think is missing from PlanetSide 2 that PlanetSide 1 has.
I think you have a Liberator flying over you right now.
Yeah, it's the what do they call them, the cops, I guess. But no, I think you could maybe create ammo. Potentially, I don't know. There's all kinds of systems. Like I always think about off-and-on bases too. Maybe like creating certain types of turrets. With certain types of implants, or maybe you could break down the implants into like nanites and use the nanites to create a thing. Because in PlanetSide everything is nanites.
You mean you want to be able to like use the nanites that you have and put them into a base, like put them into a turret and then change the turret and then use it, that kind of thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because nanites, I guess, is like it's like calories, right? It's like a measure of energy, I guess. But you could maybe create guns. I don't know. I know it's not too feasible because there's all kinds of balance issues. But I'm just throwing things out there. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can create for your player. I mean, maybe you can combine implants to craft into like a more complex system to give you a chance for a rare. You know what I mean? Because right now there's chances, but it doesn't seem like I said, too compelling. Introduce new implants that you could create for. Maybe create new actives with the same type of implant. I mean, there's so many things that you could do with it, like to personalize your player. Like I always think that our whole argument about pay to win It's not that people are going to have money to pay for these things. It's that when they pay for these things, they're going to give them an unfair advantage. So try and make sure that there's no unfair advantage to whatever you can create, but make it so that you can further customize your player or base or vehicle, you know what I mean, in ways that aren't overpowered. And so I think there's like a lot of fun things you could do, like maybe temporary cosmetics, you know what I mean? There's all kinds of things you could do with it that, I think would be pretty cool.
Temporary cosmetics. How would you foresee that happening? The other things I can understand
Right.
where you're going with that, but what kind of temporary cosmetic would you want to see?
Well, I mean, like say, I see that's what I'm saying. It would create a lot of work, right, for the artist. But say you could create like your vanguards look a different way, certain type of shielding, make your turrets look a different way, the treads look a different way. Maybe like if you have enhanced targeting, it has kind of like a radar dish on top,
Ah, I
so
see what you
that
mean.
people know you have enhanced targeting. You know what I mean? So have
You're
them match
saying
up,
if you're using a specific implant,
right?
that then you would have a cosmetic. Okay, gotcha. I didn't
Or
know.
ma-
I thought you meant like
right.
an implant that gave you a cosmetic.
Well, yeah, right. So I'm saying like create like an epic version of the enhanced targeting, right? Where only the epic version, the purple version, gives you a temporary cosmetic.
Ah,
You know
I
what I mean?
see. Okay, that I like that. I can
Yeah.
understand that. All right. Let's see. What about you, Scourge? Where do you see the implant system going, or where would you like to see it? I mean, especially as someone who you came into it going, I don't think it was a success. Where do you think it? What do you think it needs to implement to make the mechanic more of a success? And then, like, where would you like to see it in the future? If you could
Well,
have anything, pie in the sky,
if I could have any, oh boy.
with the system in mind, obviously.
Well, first off, I would like change all the implants to be like you hit a button, it does something, and then while on cooldown or at the same time you have some kind of disadvantage, and then it drains a bit of energy,
Okay.
implant energy every time you use it.
All right.
Like I just think that would be like that would fix the problem of I can't tell what just like implants
happened,
like
yeah.
what who cares.
All right.
And the other thing is I don't like the way that the whole looting works, because it doesn't feel like I'm looting something. Like when I'm playing like Diablo or whatever, I hit a monster, it drops something on the ground, I go over, I pick it up, I put it into an inventory that's like visualized. There's like
Yeah.
grids and stuff, so it kind of gives you this feeling of
You have that
object
feedback,
permanence,
right?
I guess.
Yeah, and you feel like you are the owner of it, right?
Right, whereas you're just like navigating through these obscure menus to
Mhm.
get your implants.
Yeah.
And the last thing is the crafting. Like, I think it's a misnomer to call it crafting. It's gambling. I mean,
Yeah, it's
crafting
kind of a little
implies
bit more
that
gambling.
there's a recipe that gives you this exact thing.
Gotcha.
I
So this
mean,
is more like you have a chance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
that
there is
Yeah.
no recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you put in 5, who knows what you get. Maybe you get crap. I mean,
It's getting us ready for SW Live, man. That's what it's doing.
yeah, I suppose. But
Oh goodness. It's getting us
Yeah,
ready for SOE
I
Live.
mean, it's like it's fine to have a little bit of randomness. I mean, like even like again, Diablo, when you craft like a piece of armor, it has like
Oh,
random
and when you
stats on
kill
it.
the mob and you get the loot, it's a random item.
Well, but specifically with crafting, it's like
Gotcha.
you get that specific armor piece that you wanted.
But the
It's-
stats may
but-
change. Yeah.
Right. Then the stats on it are different.
So you want it to be a little bit more obvious. Like if I have X, Y, and Z, I will get D, but it might have different stats on it, or it might be a little bit better, or it might be a little worse, but you still know that you're getting that item.
Right. And I mean, going back to like what kidRiot was saying, maybe that could be like when you're trying to craft this item, maybe you just get that legendary drop, so to speak, and then it adds like a little cosmetic effect on your tank, like a little radar dish. I don't know.
I like the little cosmetic effect for the Uber one, but I
The problem with
personally
that
would
is
like to see it
performance
for
down,
every
right?
single tier, just because I would like to know exactly what someone has on them at all times. But I've always been fighting for that since the beginning of implants. All right, do you have anything else you wanted to add to that, like where you'd like to see the system go beyond that?
Not really. I mean, I think they have the crafting system. They have the inventory now. I guess it's an inventory, and they have the implants. And I just feel like they need to take those 3 things and like really change them and refine them before they talk about adding more stuff on top of that.
All right. MuRdA, you've had time to think about this. You've heard their opinions. If you were going to change the implant system in any way or see it in the future, where would you like to see that, and what kind of mechanics would you like to have out of it?
I mean, like I had said before about the whole loot driven thing, and it goes into really everything that kidRiot and Scourge were just talking about. I think it's, there's a few different components. You want to start by having some more compelling and more interesting, especially high tier, such as tier 3 implants and things like that, available for a drop, even if it's a low chance. Same with the ultra chargers. I think would be a good idea to have a really low chance as a drop. But I mean, I think you want to, do all of these back-end related changes with regard to crafting, or I mean, there's so many different things you could do with it. You could have different materials that aren't even implants, such as like implant dust or whatever. If you're familiar with, other games that do things with like disenchanting, salvaging, and so forth, that could be used as in recipes. You could have recipes like they were talking about drop as a potential thing. So then you have a recipe to make a specific implant, or at least a specific tier of implant by combining 4 dust with whatever. I mean, I don't know. There's just like a lot more things I feel like you could do to make it more interesting. At this point, whether you spend 5K certs and you have a bunch of implants, or you don't, you just play a lot and you gain a lot from playing. Really quickly, it feels like it just gets to just be a passive something you put on the back burner. You have your implant on, you've got 5 digits worth of energy just draining slowly. It's not something you really give much second thought to. So I'd like, if you're going to go with the loot system, I'd like to tie that into, you're finding things on a regular basis that, oh, I could use that for this recipe, or oh, I found a new recipe, or I found one of those really rare drops, or, whatever direction you end up going with. I think there's a whole lot of customization there, more avenues for gambling, for crafting, for actually trying to apply things for, like I said, salvaging them. Instead of sitting on 78 copies of Battle Hardened, you can, do something with the other ones rather than having to craft them up to a tier 2 by combining 5 of them. You could disenchant them and see what you get there. I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like there's a lot of options to really kind of dig down deeper into that system and make it more interesting.
It always interests me to hear what people think about, like, how when they look at a system that's already been built by somebody else, and then they go in and they go, well, I would like to see X and Y happen. And you guys didn't really change. You weren't wanting to change the system that much. You just want it to have more options and be a little bit more diverse in the way that you craft things, and knowing exactly what you're going to get to some extent. And so I'm going to skip this one question because it doesn't really, we've talked about it a lot and kind of covered other things. But the next thing was about crafting, like does the randomness of crafting, looting, and even buying implant boxes help or hurt the overall process of implants? And I want to take that even to another further step, which is, do you guys like the looting and the crafting system? How would you change it if you could? Because I think that, to me, a couple of you, I think Scourge especially, has said that, like, it's very convoluted, right? You're like, oh, it goes in, you're like, I got something, it popped up on my UI, I don't know what that is. I mean, unless obviously you guys know because you're very experienced players and you've been following everything we do. But to the player who never watches Friday Night Ops, never sees any of our social posts, never goes to the forums, they just hop into the game and they're getting all these updates all over their screen about all these other random things. They may not catch that or know that, hey, I need to go into my UI and mess around with something. So I'm curious to what, like, you guys think should happen in that regard. Do you think that you should have a crafting station in the world? Do you think that there should be loot that actually drops, like scraps off of, a plane that just exploded? Do you feel that, I mean, there's like so many ways that you can go around that. That's why I was interested to see that none of you guys brought up those kind of things. You were more specific about the system that was already in and how it could improve. But if you could have anything, if you could change it to make it a little bit more intuitive for new players, not just yourselves, what would you want? So I'll start with Scourge on this one.
Well, an idea I think MuRdA kind of touched on a little bit is, like, we've got this, it should be like you actually do something to get the implant. I mean, because that's the thing, is right now it's just you're shooting a liberator to spawn room, just another day harvesting the crops. Oh, implant. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. But I mean, and that's like, there's actually an opportunity to do this with the directive system, player missions, whatever. Like, you could have, like, you complete a mission, it gives you an implant.
Ah,
you
so you get like a reward for
gives
missions.
You an implant.
Right.
You could do stuff like that. Quest loot.
Ooh. That's nothing
Yeah, I mean,
new.
you even have the opportunity if you're going along the lines of, offering recipes or things like that for crafting. I mean, that would be a great reward for directives to where, maybe even the only way to get a certain recipe is to complete said directive. It doesn't have to be something so complicated, but it's just another interesting reward. So if you wanted to create some sort of certain implant or a certain tier of implant or a certain whatever, you completed this directive to get that as your reward. I don't know. I think that would be interesting, but I love achievements, so.
Yeah, and there are some people who are definitely achievement hunters and they want to do quest type things. But for me, I come back to this as this is at its core an FPS game, and I
Right.
feel like those kind of things where you're looting something off of a corpse or you're doing some kind of random objective quest, that's not keeping you doing the core combat, which is FPS. So then I come back to again, how would how would you want that to be implemented and still keep your core gameplay being that? Like, do you really, Scourge? Do you really, MuRdA, want to be going out and like, oh, I blew up that mag rider, now I gotta go out, get out of my
And run
vehicle
to
and
it,
go
yeah.
loot it? Like I feel like that to me as a core FPS player, I don't really want to do that. I just want to go shoot people.
No, I mean, I don't necessarily want to go actually have to physically loot a corpse or anything like that. I mean, I know Scourge was talking about that more than I was, so I'm not sure what his take is on that. But I was saying, as far as like the directive related rewards, even if it's still like a pop up or something like that, or maybe there's like
Okay.
a mailbox in sanctuaries, right? So like you go back and you retrieve things from there. So you did a directive to capture a biolab as a part of a platoon or something like that, and for that you got a implant recipe, and then you like go back to your mailbox terminal in Sank and you pick up that recipe, and it's not really
Hmm.
actually doing anything. It
But do
doesn't
you
actually
want to
require you
have
to go
to
like
go?
bend over and loot something, but I don't know. I think it could be a little bit more interesting, I guess.
You want to have to go back to your warp gate and go to a terminal?
I mean, you don't have to. You could totally just do how you currently do it and just
Just
plop it
in the
in your
implant,
in your
in the
in your
UI.
inventory. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean that's fine too. Although I think going back to Sank at the end of the day or whatever to collect some stuff isn't so bad either. I wouldn't want to go to every corpse or anything like that, but I don't know.
All right. What about you, Scourge?
Um, well, I mean, yeah, you brought up a concern in that, especially, I think the bigger concern there is like, oh
Hmm.
man, I have to go like repair a max for an hour in order to get this
Yeah,
implant I
you
really
start to get
want.
OCD
No,
about it. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the ways to avoid that is that you just have it be like, it's a little bonus on top of like there's still the random drops and crafting and whatnot. So there's other ways of getting it, or you have it be like it's tied to something specific. Like you get an implant that is obviously for pilots by doing a player mission
Piloting thing.
that's involves piloting. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know.
I like that. I know we talked about that previously early on in this discussion was doing something specific should gain me an implant that is relevant to that.
Right.
And I understand that completely, and that's something that's easy to take back to the dev team. I'm certain that that's something that they're already thinking about on their end or have in the past, but maybe they weren't able to implement it in the time that they needed to. So my thing more so is that every one of you touched on the fact that you feel like as a new or average player coming into this, they don't know what to do with it, right? They're getting all
Right.
these things and it's popping up and they're like, I don't know, unless they go into the UI, where to go. And so what my thing is, should we have something that pops up that has UI that you have an inventory of resources that you can look at easily, or is it or the way that it is right now where you have to go into your UI, is that still a good idea keeping it that route? I'm just curious as to like
Yeah.
from a player standpoint how you would want that system UI wise to be implemented to make it a little easier on your end
Right.
to see what you've gotten recently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it has to be intuitive. I was reading an article about the I don't know who he is, like the owner of whatever studio just made WildStar,
Yeah.
and they're interviewing him, and he was saying that no matter what you do, and I'm just throwing a number out there, I forget what the number was exactly. He says every month you're going to lose 5% of your population as an MMO, right? So he says you have to automatically assume no matter what you do, you can lose at least 5%. And so
Hmm.
you have to make the game really accessible to new players because you need new blood. I mean, what it's Scourge and me and it's MuRdA going to be here 10 years from now with gray hair and talking about the same things. It's not going to work. You need new blood. So the idea is to make it intuitive, but you could have a really complex system with implants and if as long as your UI is good, as long as your implementation and documentation are solid. I mean, if I want to talk about WildStar because I've been playing it, I really like their crafting system.
Yeah.
And you could introduce something similar with implants. I mean, they don't just have to have one effect or one thing, or maybe you could customize it, modify it to be able to create what it is that you want to do with your implant. So there's a lot of ways you can do it, but at the heart of it, it has to be intuitive and it has to be really easily understood, no matter how complicated it is. I mean, I'm all for rewarding certain implants for certain actions, but if the player doesn't know what he's doing, like why did I get this implant? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's where I'm coming back to it, is
Yeah.
the core of when you're a new player, because we've talked about it quite a bit, is when you're a new player coming into the game and you get a resource, then what do you do with it? And how do you
Right.
foresee as a player
I mean,
yourself
think about it.
how to
We
make
had
that
problems.
easier?
Yeah, we had problems with implants initially, and we've been playing this game since 2003, more or less.
Hmm.
And so imagine a new player that's coming into it, especially the PS4 crowd. They're going to be coming into it, and they're going to hear, "Oh, I heard about implants, but what the hell do we do?" You know?
Hmm.
And so that's not, I think, what you want to happen as far as your new players coming in, especially because you go onto the PS4 and it's like a whole different mindset of player. You know what I mean? We're usually, the average player, a little older, I want to say. But we understand these types of things. I think but you have to make it intuitive, and it has to be really easily understood. I think those are the main objectives that should be out there. And right now, it's not. There's really no way for you to understand it, outside of like maybe having a tutorial or something.
And I don't know if they're planning on making a tutorial specifically for it, but yeah, and that's where I was going back to. As players yourselves, having played through and gotten implants and used them, how would you foresee? What would you like to see as improvements to make it easier? Not only for new players, but yourselves, right?
I think Scourge had the right idea about how it's like an inventory that isn't an inventory. And so maybe make it like a little more, easily understood. Like this is where these things go when I need them, and you could separate them. Right now, it's kind of like there's no way to even sort them. Really, they're just kind of tossed in there, and so it's
So
like
maybe a sorting aspect to the UI.
yeah, or any way to make it easier to understand. And right now, it's just basically like a box where everything gets in. You know what I mean? And who knows how it's organized.
Okay.
And also the loading system, I think, needs to change too. And those guys have
See,
right
those are things that are attainable, and that's
Right.
the kind of feedback that I was looking for. Was like,
Right.
what would you like to see? So maybe a way to sort them. What about you guys, Scourge and MuRdA?
Well, I mean, okay. So think about all the electronics you've bought before.
Hmm.
How many times did you honestly read the manual? Like honestly.
Oh yeah, never.
I mean, never. I mean, that's the problem with having like a tutorial and a help page is like people just go through
And that's
that.
not what I'm looking for. I'm saying those things are easy, doing tutorials and stuff, but who actually uses them, right? I'm
But,
saying
right.
at the core usability, when you're using it, what kind of things would you want to help improve it? I think the being able to sort, I think that's a great thing, right? It should be easily
Right.
understandable, or like a way for you to drop down and be like, I'm looking for this type of implant. I'm looking for this, like easy to search and sort. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like when I open my implant screen right now, it's just a mess. I've got like 80 battle hardens and like 40 EOD HUDs and just it's like everything is just thrown in there just willy-nilly and it's like there's no way to be like I want something that will help me with this loadout or I want something that will help because that's the thing is the implants in theory are have different amounts of usefulness to different kinds of loadouts
Okay, I like that.
like battle harden's not useful if you're using a hipfire gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
So maybe like a way for you to be like, I'm looking for these types of stats, see if I have something that will affect those.
right,
Okay.
I suppose.
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even as simple as mousing over an implant and getting more information in that regard, to sorting it by whatever role you're trying to play, or even class or vehicle, or there's a lot of implants that won't work for maxes, but you don't really know that unless you go to the max and then you know what I'm saying and read the tooltip when you mouse over it. There's a lot that will be really non-effective inside vehicles, some that will be really effective in vehicles. Likewise, as Scourge was saying with hipfire, with battle hardened versus aiming down sights. I mean, yeah, you can always throw more information and tooltips and tutorials, but I think even just having something that would maybe rank them or categorize them a little bit better as far as somebody who has no clue and they just know that they want to be sniping, for instance, they can see what might be useful. They can see hold breath, pops up first with, whatever else, for example. and not things that are completely useless to them.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with like a recommended screen, right? I mean, you could even do that with
Okay.
weapons. Recommend certain weapons or implants for certain roles. And it makes it easier. Maybe not so much for us, but for the new player
Yeah.
to say, hey, maybe this will help me. If I want to do this, and it's another recommended. I mean, look at almost all games nowadays have kind of like a recommended kind of thing. You look at like MOBAs. I hate to talk about MOBAs, but MOBAs have like a recommended build. You know what I mean? And PlanetSide 2, essentially, you have a build for your player. Your weapon. It's not really complex. You have your weapon, but now we have implants. And if implants get customized even further, or they become more meaningful and in depth, maybe like a recommended build for a certain role would be really helpful.
All right. Well, I think we've wrapped up all the comments that we had and the discussion topics that we've had, and I added quite a few extra ones in there just because I feel like some of the ones we already kind of discussed within other topics that we brought up. Do you guys have any last final things that you would like to talk about in regards to implants? We still have about 15 minutes if we wanted to take that time up. Anything? No? Scourge is done. He's out of here. He's like, I got some people to kill.
We beat this horse.
Yeah. For sure. So yeah, I think that you guys gave a lot of great feedback, and the dev team definitely has some things to work on in regards to them. I love some of the suggestions that you guys have as well. I'm wondering if they would do anything with active abilities, because the way that it works right now is it's not really usable in an active sense. They're all passive.
Yeah, I want to throw or take a guess and say the primary consideration they're going to have is how does this affect the first person shooter play?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I like the idea of active abilities. I mean, PlanetSide 2 is often been held as like an unprecedented game, right? So why not do something unprecedented with implants? I mean, there's nothing to say you can't revert it back or put it on test for like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, and test it out.
You know what I mean? Give it a lot of time on test. Let it marinate on test. Active abilities, you still have to make the decision to hit that button. So it's really up to you to choose whether that was the right or the wrong decision. You know what I mean? So it's not automatically OP unless it's something that really obviously is. But if it's just like a situational thing, active abilities are awesome. There's nothing wrong with them, I think, especially in a shooter like PlanetSide 2 where it's held as futuristic. You know what I mean? I'm not going to claim reality here, but you could do all kinds of funny things in PlanetSide 2 that you can't do in any other game. You know?
For sure. It's a different type of game for sure. All right. Well, I will wrap this up then and let you guys all tell people where they can find you at. So why don't we start off with you, Kid? Where can people find you at and see all your awesome PlanetSide 2-ness?
Yeah. Twitter's the best way at kidRiot Gun. But I gotta warn you, it's all about soccer right now. So if you don't like to hear about soccer, don't follow me or whatever it is.
All right. Let's see. Is it kidRiot1 is your Twitch?
No, at kidRiot Gun.
Okay. Or Twitch?
Oh, Twitter.
Yeah, but what's your Twitch?
Twitch is just
kidRiot.
Yeah, kidRiot.
I accidentally hit something. There we go. And then we have. Go ahead, Scourge.
My Twitter is server Scourge, although I don't really use it for much. I heckle Higby every once in a while. My YouTube is Scourge of the server. I put videos up every once in a while. I have plans of doing more, and I get bugged about that a lot. And nearly every night, not quite every night, but I stream a lot on Twitch TV at Scourge of the server.
All right. And Mr. MuRdA?
All right, so the one-stop resource, I guess, would be it's MuRdA.com, which currently just redirects to my Twitch page. But I have a very friendly Dr. Josk in the channel who's been kind enough to be, working on a website for me over the course of the past few months. That's more and more progress each day. So hopefully in the near future, that'll actually turn into a full-fledged website with other resources on it as well.
See, you call him Dr. Josk too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try to actually pronounce it. We went over that a long time ago. I mean, the other links, Twitter and YouTube, X, it's MuRdA, same for Facebook and all the rest. I'm on Twitter constantly on my phone and stuff like that. So if you guys ever have questions or just want to, chat or whatever, I try to, retweet as much as I can that's pertinent to PlanetSide 2 as well. I've been working a ton because my job and whatnot is very seasonal. So I used to be streaming every day. It's not always a possibility, but I still try to stream as much as I can. So yeah, and
like
I appreciate the support either way. Yeah, right.
All right. Yeah, these guys do some great stuff. Definitely check out all their content. And we will have them again on, I'm sure, on another panel. Next panel that we're going to be doing is all going to be about Liberators, vehicles, and all that jazz. I know that Wycliffe is going to be putting together that panel. So if you want to be on that panel, be sure to submit yourself into the panel discussion section. If you go to What is this Friday Night Ops you speak of section on the Friday Night Ops forums, it's an easy way. There's lots of forums there. If you want to be part of it as an outfit, if you want to be part of it as like you're running an event, I have all kinds of submission forms, and you just fill it out. It's really simple, and I get back to you, and we make magic happen. So thanks once again, everyone, for joining me, and I'm going to wrap up the show.
All right.
I'll
Thank
talk
you.
to you
Thank you,
guys
guys.
later.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See ya.
Take care.
Switching over here. Now, you don't get to see those guys' lovely faces, but I always love having discussion panels. I think it's interesting for me, especially coming from like a game developer standpoint, and hearing players' perspectives on things, because I'm also a player too at the core, but I think that the way that I think about things is a lot different than sometimes what players are thinking about, especially now that I also am primarily a community manager in EverQuest 2, so I have other opinions that come from that too. But I want to wrap things up here. Oh man, we're going to have a long week next week. We're going to be doing MLG Anaheim action. It's going to be super fun. I'm going to be running live streams from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. PDT. I'm trying to get together all kinds of different things, so hopefully there's lots of gameplay content. We'll try to do some developer stuff if we can. And we have Server Smash that's coming up. So be sure to check that out. It's Matherson versus Watterson, and the winner of this is going to get to pick what the name is when we merge those servers. So yeah, kind of a big deal. And that will be at 5 p.m. PDT at twitch.tv/INIcast, and that's on the 20th, which it will be right after our MLG showcase, and we'll definitely, if you follow us here, we'll forward you guys along there. We're actually going to be doing a little interview with that crew to kind of go over what they're planning on doing for the Server Smash and what they do over there in general. And I've had them on Friday Night Ups in the past. And if you guys want, just be sure to follow us here on this channel. We do all kinds of things. We have Mondays that we play the Inside Player Studio action with Tremel Isaac, which is our senior artist. He's fantastic. He's an art director. He does all things art. And he's going to be at MLG Anaheim if you want to meet him, get his signature, take a photo, take a selfie with him. I don't know. That's what you kids are doing these days. I take selfies with turkeys, so I don't know how exciting that is. And then we have Work in Progress, where a game developer will sit here right here on this channel, create all kinds of awesome things in the game. You guys can leave feedback. They can run you through the process of what they're doing. And that's on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. PDT. Once Community Clash starts up with Season 2, which is coming up here shortly. So, check those guys out. ps2comclash.com. We will have them here again on the show. And then we also have Command Center, which is every second Thursday of the month. And that is hosted by Tremel Isaac and Matthew Higbee. Oh, and you don't want to miss it. It's hilarious. They give lots of goodies, lots of goodies, all kinds of goodies. And follow us on all the social networks. We're everywhere. PlanetSide 2, everywhere, all the places. It's lots of fun. And if you guys want to check out my stuff, I am going to be streaming right after this. Whenever I get home, I'm going to eat some noms, and then I'm going to be streaming myself. But you can check out all my things at margaretcrone.com. That's my website. All my social links are there, and it will be lots of fun. Hopefully it will be fun. I like games. You like games. It'll be fun. And there's no Maggie decal. I know you guys in chat are asking for one. That's up to Tremel. Send PST Ray a bunch of messages and tell him he needs to add one. Maybe someday there will be one. And then if you guys want to be on Friday Night Ops yourself, as I stated previously, if you go to the What is this Friday Night Ops you speak of forum thread within the Friday Night Ops section, there are huge lists of ways that you can submit yourself, your outfit, your video, your whatever. Yeah, you could be on here. You can come hang out with me. I'm down. I need some more friends. I'm pretty lonely. All right. I'm going to say goodnight to you all. Hopefully you have a wonderful weekend. Defeat lots of things. Get lots of implants. Not those kind of implants. The ones in the game. And rock out. And we'll see you next week for some more action right here on this channel starting on Monday. And then we will be going into MLG Anaheim. And I can't wait. So I'll see you guys later. Toodaloo.
Sony.